So let's talk about what happens when you go over budget. Should I just do questions at the end? Does you guys want to do that? Just kind of keep going. So I looked in our budget a year ago. We have data clear back to when we were married, so almost 7 years of data. And I was looking back at our grocery budget, and I wanted to see how often we stayed under budget in grocery, because that's mainly Julie's area of expertise. So I want to see how good she was at it, and she was horrible at it. No, I think it was probably me trying to, with wishful thinking during budgeting, we can get it to whatever it used to be, and we can get it down to this. And then reality says that you have to eat, and And so I looked, and we had not stayed under budget. I mean, we set some amount in groceries, and we would do 150, or I think maybe we originally had 150 just she and I. Fantastic, and we would be at 160 or 170, And then as we made more money and got a little more lax in the grocery budget, we would maybe have $300 in there, and we'd spend $340, And then I think 500, we'd spend 560. So there was no relation at all to what we were truly consuming, but we knew whatever we had, it just always seemed to just climb 10%. And I don't know why. We've seemed to do better in the last year. I don't know, I don't know what's happened that's different, but we always go over budget every single month, and everything still was okay. So the fourth rule that I give people is what I call rolling with the punches, where in boxing, when you roll with the punches, it means if someone's punching at my face from this direction, I go the same direction as their punch, so I lessen the blow. I wouldn't want to, headbutt their fist, or anything like that. So you go with, whatever way they're swinging, you go with them. So if they do catch you, it's not as bad. You stay on your feet, and that's where the rolling with the punches comes from. So in the case where I've got these envelopes all with money inside, right? And we go over in the food budget. What I do with this fourth rule is I simply borrow from these other envelopes, okay? And with the software, it's just kind of like a calculation, but the same thing can be done on paper or with envelopes, where you can simply say, okay, I don't have that money, and you simply borrow from one that has a surplus. These funds, or these categories that we talked about, like Christmas or property taxes, things like that, those all will have surplus balances constantly, because one time a year you'll drain that, but then every other month those will start to build. And so you'll have this overall cushion in your checking account. Like if you were to, this is a whiteboard, right? So I can just use my magic marker. One time. This is important. So if you have your normal checking account balance is at 0, and then you've got money budgeted for Christmas, money budgeted for property taxes, car insurance, your real balance is pretty high. We don't care about that real balance. We only care about the balance in each compartment, right? And that's how so instead of making a spending decision, and this will happen all the time, where a spouse maybe will see the balance and say, oh, fantastic, we've got $175 in there, I can buy X. And they think it's great. I mean, and they checked, so they're being responsible. They looked, they saw the money was there, and so they said, okay, we can buy that. The other spouse, in the meantime, knows there's a bill due, and they've been kind of working on protecting that $160 that was for the bill, but they don't actually talk about it. And then they go in and pay it, and it's down to $120, and it's like freak out time, right? And it's the other person's fault, but it's really kind of a joint, you're jointly to blame for that, because you got to be communicating a little better. If someone were to see a balance of $3,000 in their checking, they might make decisions on that, but that's a poor way of doing it, because 3 months down the road you have this obligation that's going to take a chunk of that. So your modus operandi is basically to deal with those balances as they're each like their own little account, right? And then in that way you can always make the most informed decision. You can say, do we have enough in the shoe category to be able to buy these shoes? And then you can go on your merry way. With rule 4, where you're going over budget for whatever reason, a legitimate reason or not legitimate, you'll just borrow from those funds that have a surplus, right? And it just can be it's just an emergency or not. It's a conscious decision, but the key is that it's conscious and not just a knee-jerk reaction. So you borrow a little bit from that. Now, in the coming month, the first thing you do with that new money that you receive through paychecks or whatever is you take whatever you borrowed and you replenish immediately. Okay? And that's the key. It's very conservative, and it will help you to be able to get to a point where if you do go over budget, you can just recognize, oh, we're okay, we're fine, it'll be okay, because we'll just borrow a little bit and then you move forward, you pay yourself back. So instead of borrowing from Visa or Chase or anyone else, you just borrow a little bit from yourself, and then the next month you'll have less to budget, but that's just something you deal with. There is no normal month with your finances ever. Every month will be an exception. Oh, well, next month when, and then next month